The drama surrounding Fight Night in Las Vegas didn't begin with a punch. It began with a feeling. A slow, rising tension carried through the neon glow of the skyline, through the anticipation buzzing in the air, and into an arena where every fighter on the card knew this wasn't just another night. This was a proving ground. Careers would shift, momentum would change, and by the end, only a few would leave with their names elevated. As the cameras panned across the shimmering lights of the city, the stage was set for a stacked card that promised violence, precision, and moments that would echo far beyond the ring. The main event loomed large, a heavyweight title eliminator between Jarrell Big Baby Miller and Lenier Pero. But before that collision of giants, there were stories waiting to unfold. Stories of hunger, redemption, and raw ambition. The Fight Night began with a fighter carrying the hopes of a nation. Nishant Dev, the Indian Olympian, stepped into the ring with a quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with the noise around him. Across from him stood Juan Carlos Guerra Jr., a tough, seasoned opponent who had built his reputation on resilience. But from the opening bell, it became clear that this wasn't going to be a drawn-out chess match. Dev wasted no time asserting himself. His left hand snapped forward with sharp precision, landing clean and often. There was something different about him tonight, an urgency, a willingness to let his hands go in combinations that hadn't always been there before. Each punch carried intent, each movement calculated yet aggressive. Guerra tried to respond, but he was already being pushed onto the back foot. Then it happened. A perfectly timed step-back left hand, clean, direct, and devastating, cut through the space between them. Guerra didn't just stumble, he collapsed. The impact was undeniable. The crowd erupted as Dev sensed his moment, closing in with the kind of killer instinct that had once been questioned. Seconds ticked away, but Dev didn't need much time. Another barrage, another crushing blow, and it was over. The referee stepped in just before the round could end, but the message had already been delivered. Nishant Dev wasn't just here to compete, he was here to finish. The knockout victory wasn't just a win, it was a statement. The kind of performance that forces people to stop asking if a fighter has power and start acknowledging that they do. But Fight Night doesn't pause for reflection. It moves forward relentlessly into the next story. Freddy Rojas entered the ring with a unique narrative of his own, a man balancing life as a nurse, a chef, and a fighter. It was the kind of background that made him easy to root for. But inside the ropes, sentiment means nothing. Across from him stood Damian Sosa, a pressure fighter with a relentless style and a hunger that couldn't be masked. From the early moments, the contrast in styles was evident. Rojas had the physical advantages, the height, the reach, but Sosa had something more dangerous, rhythm and intent. He pressed forward constantly, refusing to give Rojas space to settle. Every time Rojas tried to establish his range, Sosa was there, closing the distance, turning the fight into a gritty, physical battle. The exchanges became increasingly intense. Rojas landed sharp shots, his left hand firing like a missile at times, but Sosa absorbed them and kept coming. There was a subtle shift happening, one that didn't rely on a single moment but on accumulation. Sosa was thinking faster, adapting, quicker, and slowly breaking Rojas down. By the middle rounds, the tide had clearly turned. Sosa's pressure was suffocating. He worked angles, shifted stances, and unleashed combinations that forced Rojas into survival mode. The ropes became a familiar place for Rojas, and every second spent there seemed to drain more from him. Then came the moment that defined the fight. A crushing body shot from Sosa landed with precision, folding Rojas just enough to send him down. It wasn't dramatic, but it was decisive. The referee counted, and while Rojas rose to his feet, something had changed. The confidence was gone, replaced by urgency and fatigue. The final rounds were a testament to Sosa's dominance. Rojas fought bravely, but he was walking into the storm again and again. When the final bell rang, there was little doubt about the outcome. The judges confirmed it moments later, unanimous decision. Damian Sosa had secured the biggest win of his career, not with a single highlight, but with sustained, intelligent aggression. If that fight was about pressure, the co-main event was about explosive power. Alan Chavez stepped into the ring as a rising contender, but what unfolded was something far more dramatic than a typical step forward. Miguel Madueno, known for his toughness and willingness to engage, seemed ready for a battle, but Chavez had other plans. From the opening seconds, Chavez was sharp. His left hand found its target early, snapping Madueno's head back and forcing him to reconsider his approach. There was no hesitation, no feeling out process, just immediate, calculated violence. Then came the punch. A left hand, thrown with perfect timing and devastating accuracy, landed flush. Madueno didn't stumble. He didn't try to recover. He went down, and he stayed down. The arena fell into a strange silence before erupting into chaos. The referee began the count, but it was almost ceremonial. Everyone watching knew the fight was over the moment that punch connected. Chavez didn't celebrate wildly. Instead, there was a quiet recognition of the damage done. Across the ring, concern replaced competition as Madueno remained motionless. It was the kind of knockout that defines careers, the kind that gets replayed, analyzed, and remembered. For Chavez, it wasn't just a victory. It was an announcement, a declaration that he belonged among the most dangerous fighters in the division. And then finally, it was time. The main event, the heavyweights, the culmination of everything the night had been building toward. Jarrell Big Baby Miller stood in one corner, a massive presence both physically and stylistically. Known for his relentless output and durability, he was a fighter who thrived in chaos. Across from him, Lenier Pero brought a different kind of threat. Technical, composed, and equipped with a reach advantage, he represented a challenge that required more than just brute force. From the opening rounds, the dynamic was fascinating. Pero used his length effectively, landing sharp shots and attempting to control the distance. His left hand found its mark multiple times, even causing Miller to react, smiling, shaking his head, but undeniably feeling the impact. Miller, however, was never going to be deterred. He pushed forward, throwing combinations in bunches, turning the fight into the kind of battle he preferred. Every exchange carried weight. Every round felt like a war of attrition. As the fight progressed, the physical toll became evident. Both men had moments of success, but Miller's pressure began to tilt the scales. He didn't just throw punches, he imposed himself, forcing Pero into exchanges that drained energy and disrupted rhythm. There were moments where Pero seemed to regain control, landing clean shots and using his movement, but sustaining that strategy proved difficult. Miller's ability to absorb punishment and keep coming forward created a constant dilemma. Fight on the back foot and risk being overwhelmed, or stand your ground and engage in a battle of power. Round after round, they traded. Heavy shots echoed through the arena. The crowd felt every exchange, every shift in momentum. This wasn't a technical showcase. It was a test of will. By the championship rounds, fatigue had set in, but neither fighter backed down. Miller continued to press, throwing combinations and even finding moments to engage with the crowd, signaling confidence, despite the grueling pace. Pero fought back bravely, but the consistency of Miller's attack was difficult to match. When the final bell rang, there was a sense of respect between the two warriors. They had given everything. The judges were left to decide. The scorecards told the story. Unanimous decision. Jarrell Big Baby Miller. It was more than just a win. It was validation. A statement that he could endure, adapt, and emerge victorious in one of the toughest fights of his career. For Pero, it was a setback, but one that came with proof of his own capabilities on a big stage. As the night came to a close, the stories lingered. Nishant Dev's explosive finish, Damian Sosa's relentless rise, Alan Chavez's terrifying knockout, and Jarrell Miller's hard-fought triumph. This wasn't just a fight card. It was a collection of moments that defined fighters and reshaped trajectories. The kind of night that reminds you why boxing remains one of the most unpredictable and emotionally charged sports in the world. And now the question shifts to you. Which moment stood out the most? Was it the precision of Dev, the pressure of Sosa, the power of Chavez, or the endurance of Miller? Let me know your thoughts, and if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next story waiting to unfold inside the ring.